is your time to stand up now. We can't carry on like this. This is your time to stand up now. We can't carry on like this. This is the time to stand up now. We can't carry on like this. This is the time to stand up now. We can't carry on like this. This is the time to stand up now. We can't carry on like this.
Good evening. So there I was, nibbling my samosa, as you do. A very nice samosa as well. Where now? Excuse me. Where was I? Yes. There I was, nibbling my samosa, minding my own business, nibbling my own samosa, as you do, when my phone rang. And I looked at it. It was Saturday afternoon. And the football was on. I thought, nah, I can't be arsed. And guess who it was? It was followed by a text message. It was Detective Sergeant Andy Day from Greater Manchester Police. Now, those who are unfamiliar with Detective Sergeant Andy Day from Greater Manchester Police, he was the detective sergeant that contacted me, that contacted Debbie Barrett Cole, and contacted Paul Boots Arrock. And he hauled us all in, threatening us with arrest if we didn't volunteer to be interviewed under caution for some obscure law to do with influencing elections. And when I went in to see Detective Sergeant Andy Day, very quickly it became clear that the rules in which they police us is very, very different from the rules by which they police politicians. So, all of you are familiar with how it's been impossible to enforce the police to do their jobs when it comes to the clear questions that individuals such as Councillor Sean Fielding have to answer. Witness after witness after witness went forward with evidence, and Detective Inspector Kenny Day, having sat on it for months and months and months, refused to interview him. But with me and Debbie and Paul, it was very different, because it transpired that the MP Oldham for Oldham East and Saddleworth, Debbie Abrams, who's a very close friend of Imran Khan there, whose picture I put up, with a very, very, a view that, well, if it was a child of mine with a view like that, I would, yeah. So, when I sat down with a solicitor that I had to raise money for because I didn't trust the duty solicitors, and people will tell you not to trust the duty solicitors because they tend to be on friendly terms with the police. So, £600 later, his solicitor and I are looking at each other in bafflement at a Detective Sergeant Andy Day and a colleague of his in an interview room under caution, where he's presenting to me evidence that Debbie Abrahams had put forward to him, which she had claimed was me attempting to influence the outcome of an election. Bizarrely, at the time, I was a member of the Labour Party. So how was it trying to influence the outcome of an election as a member of the Labour Party? Oh no, don't be silly. Of course, all the evidence has now come out that the Labour Party were trying to do their best to stop the Labour Party from being elected. The upshot of it was, we had this. I'll put it up. It is Welcome to Oldham, Part 7. And I put this up almost immediately after the interview, as I made sense of what went on. And essentially what went on was Debbie Abrams, and it's all on the webpage. It's all on my webpage. Read it at your leisure. People say I don't give evidence. Here's all the evidence. Well, no, people don't say I don't give evidence. It's it's those who would rather hide the truth. Let me get back to, no, not just yet. I'll nibble my samosa during the credit. Anyway, the upshot of it was Debbie Abrahams, an MP in this country, had doctored evidence and presented doctored evidence to the police. But I don't think that's the worst of it. On reflection, I don't think that's the worst of it. The police and the Crown Prosecution Service accepted her evidence without even looking at it. And the consequence was me in an interview room at Oldham Police Station, interviewed under caution, when my solicitor and I looked at each other, and my solicitor passed Detective Sergeant Andy Day the phone over. And the phone had the entirety of the messages that she had extracted small segments from. And the entirety of the messages, or my entirety of my posts, clearly demonstrates something other than Debbie Abrahams had attempted to present to the police and to the Crown Prosecution Service, who unfortunately, and I don't use the race card, I don't think it's about racism. I think they'd have done the same if I was a white working class lad off fit and ill. They'll have done exactly the same to me. They just accepted the powerful white woman politician's view that somehow I was a criminal. And then when he saw the entirety of the post, the detective sergeant's face dropped. And I forced from him, and it's all on interview, it's always recorded, I forced from him that he had not even bothered to look at the evidence himself. But he'd been harassing me and insisting that if I didn't go into the police station, I risked arrest. Now, why am I sharing this? Oh, yes, by the way, it took about 6 months or so. But then, eventually, I heard back by an email, not even a phone call, not even a courtesy phone call, by an email from my solicitor that the case against me had been dropped. Now, imagine any of you for 6 months having the potential criminal case hanging over you for doctored evidence. It was clear what had happened before that interview had even been concluded. Which is probably why when I went and dropped some feed off for a cousin of mine this week, and why I'm brushing through my hair, I'm finally getting it cut, I think, next week. A cousin of mine said I'd gone grey. And it doesn't look the same when I'm on the telly, is how she describes me when I'm doing this. I did have a giggle with her as to why she watched me on the telly, seeing as though English wasn't the best. But she goes, she just liked to see my face on the telly. Why am I sharing this? Detective Sergeant Andy Day phoned me yesterday and left a message. Mr. Meir, it's Andy Day from GMP. Would you be able to give me a call back at your convenience? Thanks, Andy. Saturday afternoon is not my convenience. I don't think it's most people's convenience. And for people who know, as well as me, we're trying to squeeze the football in. I spend the weekends with my daughter. Most of my friends know this. He didn't phone me again today. Didn't leave a message. Doesn't say what it's about. So you know what? Let's give him a call.
Welcome to the EE voicemail. I'm sorry, but the person you've called is not available. Please leave your message after the tone. After you finish your message, just hang up. Or to hear more options, please press 1.
Detective Sergeant Andy Day, it's Raja Meir returning your call. You phoned me on Saturday afternoon and you phoned me again on Sunday afternoon. I hope this time you're not going to be wasting my time and not harassing me in the same way you did last time, because that's what happened last time when you contacted me after not looking at any evidence before. Now, my understanding is, Detective Sergeant, that you somehow are involved in the oversight of the elections. Now, I am not a candidate. I am a member of the public who is commentating on the evidence as I see in front of me, and I'm sharing it with a small group of friends. I've not broken any laws, and I'd like you to stop harassing me. And if you want to see me for anything, then tell me what it is you want to see me for when you phone me, rather than just ask me to return calls. Because I've already submitted a complaint about Greater Manchester Police and the harassment and the corruption and the cover-up that Oldham Police Station is involved in, particularly your colleague Detective Inspector Kenny Blaine. So I'd prefer you, if you want to speak to me, when you text me or call me and leave a message, tell me exactly what it's about, so when I call you back, I have an understanding of what I'm getting involved in. Enjoy your Sunday evening, okay, Andy, and I will speak to you soon, no doubt. Bye. Yeah, I'm not scared of them at all.
Do not fear them. Do not fear any of them. On the 20th of November 2003, James Ignatius O'Rourke McMahon was elected councillor for the Failsworth East Ward of Oldham. Deeply ambitious, he ruthlessly rose to power, and by 2011, he was already leader of the council. In 2015, exploiting a Labour Party loophole, he became MP for Oldham West and Royton. If only the people of the town knew then what they now know. Do not fear them. Do not fear any of them.
A very, very warm welcome to the Recusant Nine Transmission for the 11th of April. We are still on YouTube. Unfortunately, we lost our transmission from last week, and the post that clearly evidenced a series of exchanges with the malicious blogger and proven liar Neil Wilby, the MP Jim McMahon, the leader of Oldham Council, Councillor Sean Fielding, and an account by the name of Rusty Wheels, which led from referring to me as a police informant, all the way to an ominous picture of my front door posted all over social media, and the words consequences written in a post. Obviously, the police didn't do anything, but we are where we are. I will keep going for as long as I can. YouTube, apparently they'd had complaints, multiple complaints for legal action, for defamation. I have 300 and something subscribers, and if you listen to any of these idiots, only 200 people apparently listen to me, which I'm comfortable with. If it was only 20 of you, it'd be fine by me, but for some reason I'm that much of a threat. They have to threaten YouTube with legal action rather than threatening me with legal action, which would probably make more sense, would it not, if what I was saying was untrue or libelous or defamatory? It's all about censorship. That's what all of this is about. And someone who has spent the majority of his adult life defending our way of life, protecting democracy, fighting extremists, challenging terrorists, putting my life on the risk time after time after time. In my own country, I'm not going to bow down to this form of censorship, because let's face it, the only issues I'm raising are to do with my hometown, where I was raised, where I spent the majority of my life, on issues of the clear corruption in the council, of politicians who celebrate their relationships with gangsters, of an MP who publicly endorses not just the heroin dealer, but the getaway driver of an Oldham cop killer. And, of course, where all this began, the systematic grooming, abuse and trafficking of our town's children. Now, if that means that they censor me, so be it. If that means that Detective Sergeant Andy Day or his colleagues at Greater Manchester Police arrest me and put me in prison, so be it. If one child is protected from the horrific abuse that we all now know took place in this town, then it's, as far as I'm concerned, it's a price worth paying. If one more of our historic buildings are saved from being used to barter for block votes and rig elections, then as far as I'm concerned, going to prison is a price worth paying. And if it means that we cut out this cancer, and if not cut it out, at least all of you now are aware of it, of how the Asian criminal cartels have infiltrated the civic systems in this town, then I am comfortable to go to prison. Because that's what we do in a democracy. Every one of us is tasked with that responsibility. It's both a birthright and it is also a responsibility. We have to protect our way of life. Because if we don't protect our way of life, who will? I am only able to transmit with your kind support. There's a Buy Me a Coffee link at the bottom. Please, if you haven't, not if you have, if you haven't this month or bought me a coffee, please do buy me a coffee. I know, if I'm honest with you, I think we've got about 50 or so people who regularly buy me a coffee and up to 100 supporters. And I'm really, really sorry. I'm really, really sorry that some of you saw your names in print last week by that malicious blogger and proven liar, Neil Wilby. I'm really sorry because I know what it's like when people who are quiet people who stay out of the limelight suddenly find that someone is putting their names and their photographs all over the internet. I know what the purpose is. It's to silence you, it's to scare you, it's to intimidate you. And I'm really, really sorry that people who I've never met, apart from through this screen, who I've had the odd Zoom meeting with last year, where we'd get together and talk and have a chat. I'm really, really sorry that you've been targeted this way. In the same way, I'm really, really sorry that innocent people like Jane Barker, Mark Wilkinson's daughter, when they're saying, they had nothing to do with any of this, have been named, Rocky Skelshaw, have their photographs shared. We know it's intimidation. We know it's harassment. And it doesn't matter that 2 of my videos have been taken down. They're back up. I put the links up on Facebook. They're back up on Rumble, I think we put it up. And thank you to those of you who said, Raja, go and put them on Rumble. Raja, go and put them on Rumble. So I've gone and put them on Rumble. I've created an account. It took me half a day to work out what to do. But I've put them up there. Mark, you know what I found? Again, ominous, was the description that somehow someone had looked into and I people who know where I live, it's like an underground car park, like a ground floor car park with some gates. Not only had they put the photograph of my front door up, they'd looked in to see what car I drive and then described it in a completely inappropriate way to give something misleading. All of this is only possible because of the faith I've put in you and because of all of you who continue to support me. You tune in, you listen in. You don't think twice about going and buying a newspaper. And in a democracy, why am I defending myself? If my townsfolk and actually people from other towns want to support me to have a platform to share my views and opinions, and actually my expertise on how to navigate these issues without being branded a racist, and even if you are branded a racist, how to still navigate them with integrity, with honesty, with dignity. If I am sharing this, how is this in any way wrong? And in a democracy, the leader of a council, an MP, other Labour Party politicians, and someone who claims to be a journalist, attempting to censor free speech. It's not hate speech coming from me. There's hours and hours and hours of my talking to in front of a camera. None of this is hate speech. I think people can look and see where I'm coming from and whether I'm playing a game here. I've spent my life working with children. I'm a Muslim man who spent my life working with predominantly white working class children. I feel I have a greater responsibility to try and help deal with this issue around the grooming gangs. That's how I feel. And as for the issues of racism, when I came back to my hometown and I saw how things were being played out, my career has took me to working at the highest level internationally as a person who can look around and work out what's going on and how to strengthen communities. And I do not believe, hand on heart, that we can move forward as a town together unless we deal with these demons. And they're our demons. And we need to face them. And Denise, sorry, I'll just put your... Denise has been supporting me from the beginning. I've never met Denise. I've never met most of you. All I'll say is I am, as a former Labour Party member, and they kicked me out because I reported crimes, corruption, child abuse. Within 48 hours of me reporting them, they fabricated something. Now, I belong to another party. I don't belong to any other party. But as an independent person, Denise, my offer here has always been the same. The Failsworth Independents have took up on it. We had Brian Hoban here once, twice, 3 times. Mark Wilkinson's took me up. A number of the Proud of Oldham team have put me up. I hope 1 or 2 of the Oldham Hearts take me up on the offer. I know at least one of them openly supports me and has been doing for a long time. The Lib Dems have offered. In fact, Moyob's been on several times. I have Lib Dem supporters. In fact, I've got friends standing for election. People I respect who are in the Lib Dems. My friends in the Labour Party won't talk to me officially. But if Sean Fielding wanted to come on and explain why the investigation into child abuse has been kicked into touch, if he wanted to come on and explain his relationship with Failsworth School, because we know he was a governor. It was on his bio on Facebook. He was a governor at Failsworth School. When I worked in this space, and I worked with decent councils, and there are decent councils, they would be launching an investigation into Failsworth School immediately. They would be launching an investigation into Countill School and the grooming and gang rape there immediately. But they haven't here. And instead they want you and me to report them to the very institutions where the cover-up took place. How can you go and report something to the very people who are responsible for covering up in the first place? How can you go and report it to the police who are in special measures, who are also involved in the cover-up? Look at that case that's emerged. The 15-year-old was raped by some Asian bloke. They didn't even interview the Asian bloke. They lost her DNA and then they lied to her and said the CPS had refused to move the case forward. My immediate suspicions, conclusions are, 1, the police couldn't be bothered with this child because she was white and working class and didn't matter. Or 2, they were protecting the rapist. What was he, a politician? Someone senior in the council? Some councillor's brother? Nephew? What? These are legitimate questions to ask. And no matter what the questions, it still doesn't excuse what took place. It doesn't excuse it at all. And as I've mentioned multiple times, I have friends of mine in the police. I've worked with the most senior police officers. None of this sits comfortably with anybody with any morals or integrity. Being told, as a police officer, ignore the Asian paedophiles, go and find some white ones instead. That's not me saying that. That's in an official report. That's what happened. Let's get on with today. So please, if you can, apparently I'm begging. I've never seen this as begging. We're in this together. We've been in this together from the beginning. And every day more and more join us, which is why they are so desperate to take me off. I know what I bring to this space. Why are... So I've got this samosa in my hand. Now let me do this. And you can at least see me... Let me put myself in the corner. Why are our politicians silent to what is clearly a police force no longer fit for purpose? I'll tell you why I think they are. It's because this police force has got to the disastrous place it has after the politicians took over the running of it. Andy Burnham is clearly not fit for purpose in his role. The Home Secretary believes that. She's the one who's written to him, demanding improvements. He's the one who's responsible for the police force, but yet he's nowhere to be seen. He's nowhere to be seen. Another 1,600 more unrecorded crimes. On top of the 4,500 before, on top of the 70,000 or 80,000 before. And that's just over a year. I reported the photograph of my front door 2 weeks ago. Not a single police officer has been in touch. How are working class victims meant to feel when they go and report crimes and they are failed by the police? It's easier for people like me. We're confident, we're articulate, we have enough life experience to know how we can maneuver through the situations we find ourselves in. How is a 13-year-old child who was passed about and gang raped by a Pakistani gang after being picked up on the school gates meant to navigate her way through this? In a fit-for-purpose democracy, each fundamental arm of our democracy acts as a counterbalance to the other and keeps them in check. The silence from Debbie Abrahams, Jim McMahon and Angela Rayner to the failure of Greater Manchester Police. And that's what it is, the failure of Greater Manchester Police. It's the special measures is nothing more than because of their association with Andy Burnham. Can you imagine if we had a Tory Greater Manchester Mayor, Police and Crime Commissioner? They'd be screaming and shouting from every place possible. And it just gets worse for them, doesn't it? I mean, this came out. Sexually assaulting what? Looks like one of his colleagues. They've got to get a grip. It needs taking over. Because whatever, how can people who have been responsible for the mess it's got into be tasked with the responsibility of fixing it? Particularly when they covered up the mess they found themselves in. What does this do for confidence in the police force? What does it do when police officers like Detective Inspector Kenny Blaine ignore the evidence and describe themselves as a gatekeeper and fail to even interview politicians who have admitted to doing what they've been accused of? This is like something out of some banana republic in South America, where the police chief is the brother of the prime minister or the president, and the army guy is the heroin dealer, or the cocaine dealer actually over there. I know so many of you have written to the Home Office. I have too. The government need to intervene in Oldham. The government need to take over the running of the council that has attempted to rig an election. And neither do I, Julie. And that's the problem. When good, honest, decent people, law-abiding citizens, do not have confidence in the system. And trust has broken down. When that has happened in countries elsewhere and at times past, what happens next is never good. When the police have been exposed for what they are in Greater Manchester, and this isn't, again, it's not about the police officers on the front line. They hate this more than we do. Can you imagine going to work and working for someone who's a paedophile protector? Or who covers up for bent politicians? Can you imagine going to work and doing that and working for someone like that? And before someone reports me for that, again, that's evidenced. A government report confirmed that police officers were told to ignore paedophiles because they were the wrong colour. Nothing about the children they were raping. That's the sound of a gong thing from, and that comes up every time someone gives me a donation, so thank you. It's, I grew up in the 80s and 90s, I grew up in arcades. That's the gong out of Mortal Kombat, if anyone remembers it. Sorry, I can't help myself. I'm nibbling on a samosa. Jim, do you want a samosa? My samosas are really good. Moyab's wife made me my samosas, so they're spectacularly yummy. I have been in a stalemate. I've been in a stalemate with the Information Commissioner's office for the best part of a year. And that stalemate is the council brazenly said, we're not answering Mr. Mia's freedom of information requests because we don't like what he does with the information. So that's right. What Mr. Mia does with the information is use his skills and expertise to interpret what they've put in front of me and share it to a wider audience. And I ask you to do what I've always asked you to do right from the beginning. Make your own mind up. You decide who's telling the truth. You decide what's going on in our town. The Information Commissioner's office said they're backlogged. It's been a year, and I've been sat on a year. And during that time, the freedom of information requests I submitted, information has already emerged from other places. Rod Blythe, Councillor Rod Blythe, convicted child sex offender, put on the sex offenders register for 10 years. I had to obtain that information through other means. You can see why the council wanted to hide that, can't you? Also come out that Jim McMahon MP provided Dale Cregan's getaway driver and heroin dealer with a reference, even though he had been convicted for his role in supporting an Oldham cop killer. You couldn't make it up, could you? Despite the blockages, we now know all about Glodick baths, the Chadderton Library, Carnegie Library, the swimming baths, the secret funding of mosques. A whole list of actions that are an affront to our democracy and our way of life. The council is involved in attempting to rig an election, people. Just think about that. The council is involved in attempting to rig an election. Sorry, I can't move that. Not that I want to, but I was hoping I could shift it out of the way. No, I'm still learning how to do all of this. Yes, Charles. Because it's a can of worms, Charles. They finally come across a group of working class people who've banded together, who are resilient, who are resolute, who are educated, who won't fall into the traps of you're a racist, or allow themselves to be arrested because they've marched or demonstrated, because marching and demonstrations won't solve this. The town is at risk of bankruptcy. The town is at risk of bankruptcy. And the reason the town is at risk of bankruptcy is because of the folly of repeated Labour Party leaders who have used this town as a stepping stone in their career journeys. Chronic Oldham's list and detailed analysis, long before I came along, is a remarkable work of art. Resilience, diligence, resolute. Millions, tens of millions, wasted by Jim McMahon on one vanity scheme after another that he passed off as successes, so he could use it as a stepping stone to become an MP. And then eventually, when Sean Fielding became the leader in a coup, where he ousted the existing Labour leader in a coup and came in with fieldings with Jim McMahon's sidekick, Arooj Shah, his parliamentary assistant, who was suddenly elevated into the role of deputy leader. This was just a continuation of what was before. And this muppet, and sorry, he's a muppet, goes and buys a shopping centre. He goes and buys a shopping centre. And doesn't stop to check. And he already admitted himself he bought it without looking at it. So he admitted that himself. And then it emerges this week that they don't even own the leases inside. Now, someone, and it's the Mustang nonsense, it's the Mustang brothers and Wilby and all the others, they claimed I once drove a Lamborghini. I've never driven a Lamborghini. People who know me know I'm eccentric rather than bling. So Lamborghinis were never my style when I had money. But I did drive a TVR. I drove, and it was, everything you know about TVRs is true. They'd break down all the time. When it rained, it leaked. All of that is true. But it was a piece of art. English, British engineering at the time. And it'd just been taken over by a Russian billionaire. He bought it as a plaything. And of course, the car that I bought was one of the last cars that they ever produced because the company went bust soon after. But it emerged at the time. He'd bought the name, but not the factory. He'd bought the name, but not the parts. And he'd just been had. It's like, what's the modern day, what's the Oldham equivalent? That lad who's bought the Oldham Athletic Football Club. Well, one of the stands doesn't belong to him. So here we are. Let's have a look at the barefaced lies that led up to this. Because remember, until I released the document, the committee document, and it was published, but they hide these things. And thank you to Anita Lowe, actually. Anita, hi, who sent me that document and said, Raja, have you had a look at this? Can you work out what's going on here? I think it was 7 a.m. I was on my second cup of coffee and I spat it out. I did spit it out. I spat it out here. Thinking, what a numpty. He doesn't own any of the leases inside. Paul, I'll tell you why you're not going to get a breakdown. It's because it involved first-class business flights and 5-star hotel layovers. Let me bring something up because I want to go through it. This is from the council's own webpage. So people who want to sue me, this is from the council's own webpage. It's a live document. First lie. Oldham Council has bought the Spindles Town Square Shopping Centre, safeguarding an important town centre building. Lie. Blatant lie. How are they safeguarding an important town centre building by buying it? Was it at risk? There are plenty of buildings in Oldham, historic buildings that mean stuff to all of us. That's at a risk. Not buying those, are they? How was this building at risk? I'd like Dr. Carolyn Wilkins to tell us. And paving the way for a new Tommyfield market. New homes and businesses as part of our ambitious vision for a thriving Oldham town centre. Another lie. Several lies. Paving the way for a new Tommyfield market. They're not having a new Tommyfield market. They're forcing the inside market, the market traders, to move into a derelict built space that they've bought to try and claim some rent. That's not paving the way for a new Tommy Fuel market. The world I come from, that's called blackmail. Move here or else. New homes and businesses. What new businesses? What new homes? Oh, the homes that Sean Fielding, again on record, claims people who live in who are looking to live in places like Saddleworth will consider living here. A stone's throw from Coldhurst and St Mary's, where the Coldhurst overspill is being housed. No, I'm not a snob. I'm far from a snob. I've slept on the streets. I've slept in park benches when I was younger. I don't hide any of that. But I cannot see any reason why someone who is considering a home in Saddleworth will consider moving into a house next to Coldhurst and St Mary's, wedged between Coldhurst and St Mary's. I can't see it. Am I missing something? And the lies continue. This includes providing a sustainable future. How is it sustainable if the market traders can't afford the rent? With exciting plans. We're good at exciting plans in this town, aren't we? A more prominent location as part of a refurbished shopping centre. How can they refurbish this shopping centre when they don't own the leases? I don't even understand what Sean Fielding's sentence means. He's clearly not written it. It's written by one of his £55,000 a year spin doctors. One of the two that he hired last year. Whilst increasing the school meal costs 3 times. And cutting valuable youth services funding. He had the money to hire 2 new ladies to write all his PR for him. The Spindles Town Square Shopping Centre is a landmark of Oldham Town Centre. And acquiring it is a fantastic opportunity to kickstart transformational change and provide a catalyst for post-COVID recovery. Does he even understand what on any of that jargon means? I'm hearing that the Lidl's not happening. Sorry, I am nibbling on this samosa right now. The only way, Sean, that we're going to make Oldham a better place to live, work and do business is by cleaning up the town. It's by having a council that is fit for purpose, that is not hiding child abuse. Which big business wants to come into a town that's mired in the controversies that this town is? And no, those sorts of businesses are not allowed. We're not having a giant chicken shop with an ice cream factory on the first floor. That's an idea for Debenhams, isn't it? Let me move on to the next one. So this is what I released last week. on Facebook where I'm meant to be banned, allegedly. See, again, Oldham Council's webpage. It's its own webpage. You've got to press buttons and hide things. But the purpose of this report is to seek approval to purchase... Let me move myself completely out of the way. To purchase the leasehold interest outside of a public... The purpose of this report is to seek approval to purchase the leasehold interest of a unit within the Spindles and Town Square shopping centre to avoid it going to auction. So that is an admission that they don't own the leaseholds inside Spindles and Town Square shopping centre. That's an admission. And the decision to approve the submission of an expression of interest to purchase the leasehold interest outside of a public auction process. I have friends who buy property at auctions and they're rich. They do what they do with buying and selling buildings and flipping them and that sort of stuff. When they buy them outside of auction, it's usually because the person they're buying it off is either desperate to sell because he needs the money immediately, or they don't know the value of it. And sometimes they're buying it at a premium because they know they need that building to finish off some other plan they've got. Now, I'm sure if the council goes to a leaseholder, the leaseholder knows the council is desperate and wants this space. And if they're going to sell it outside of an auction, if it was any of you, what would you do? You'd rinse them for every penny possible. And so you should. And yes, Paul, I'm getting to it, Paul. Give me a second. They had three options. They always have three options. Do nothing. Get it one way. No, it's just nonsense. The three options are nothing. They're just nonsense. And they've decided for option 3. Acquire by negotiation. Acquiring by negotiation will enable the council to swiftly deliver a site within the council's control out of public visibility. Out of public visibility. You can call me if you want, Paul. Tell me exactly what you think of out of public visibility. Just means I get to nibble more samosas whilst you talk. But I just find that unbelievable. An admission. That one, they don't own it. And 2, they want to buy it in secret. So we don't know how much money they've spent on it. They're missing one thing out. If it is the old Debenhams unit, and Debenhams going into receivership and all that, if it is old, the receivers have a legal duty to get the most they can for it. They can't do a deal with the council unless the council is overpaying. And the obvious question, who are you going to send to negotiate? Will they be wearing a ripped underpants? Some sort of hair tied back in some sort of ponytail look? Will they wearing one of those Macs that make them look like a bloke who should be stood outside a park and you're worried about them, stood outside school gates? Dr. Carolyn Wilkins isn't going to negotiating. She's not coming back to this town. Boobgate. I'm already starting to laugh to myself as to what sort of negotiation skills she has. What about the other one? I forget the other one's name. What about the other one? The one who was named in a government report when millions and millions and millions went missing? You might as well bring back the borough, the planning guy who was suspended for gross misconduct and disappeared. You can join me whenever you want, Paul. My understanding is that Tommyfield Market isn't so easy, the land isn't so easy to sell. And it wouldn't be the first time that this council has tried to sell land it has no right to sell. And when these questions have been raised in the public space, not a single councillor or a single council official has come out and said they have the right to sell this land. No. It'd be funny, wouldn't it? If it wasn't so serious, if it wasn't our town, we'd look at it and laugh. My haircut is my friend Lisa's coming to cut it because I follow the rules. Lynn, sorry, I better put you up. I follow the rules, Lynn. Well, I do my best to follow the rules. So I wasn't taking a walk to Mosley, for instance, this week. Which is what Sean, this bloke put up. Turns out he was a councillor in Mosley. I'll get to that later. And Sean Fielding's having a walk to Mosley. What on earth is Sean Fielding having a walk to Mosley for? You can tease me as much as you want, Lynn. Any of you can. I'm comfortable with being teased. Here we go. Chronic Oldham at his best. Have you seen this? I'm not going to play it. I can't be bothered. Have you seen it? Reopening the high street safely. They'll have spent tens of thousands of pounds on that. It's got bugger all to do with reopening the high street, as Chronic Oldham extensively demonstrates in his... and everything to do with promoting the Labour Party, Sean Fielding and the others. Once again, the same as the letter that you all received that cost somewhere between £70,000 and £100,000. This thing, I'll just play it whilst it'll have cost, there will be no sound. This thing will have cost, oh, there is sound.
At Tommyfield Market, back in the day, shoppers would gather from far and away.
This thing would have cost.
I'd say, "Please, Mum, please can I get some sweets?"
Another 10,000, maybe
and
more.
She'd talk to every friend she meets. I loved it, still do. I give it my all. 30 odd years I've sold fish from this stall. I love working side by side with my lad. But last year was the worst we've ever had. We pulled through. We continued to trade.
Last year was the worst we ever had. We pulled through.
A few
Remember
changes
last
were made.
year?
We've even delivered straight to your door.
The council insisted on taking the full rent.
And now
from
we
these
need you
folk.
more than ever before.
Whilst they
It's
were
not back to normal.
on
It's
their
a place
knees,
to start. Wash hands,
and then
mask on, stay 2 metres
announced
apart.
last month the council are giving massive grants out to taxi
We've installed
drivers
signage to show you the way. We know we've all got our own part to play.
using their discretionary
Spindles
power
will start to look
to
different
give
quite
something.
soon.
Was it £10,000 out
My
to
stall's
each
moving
taxi
here.
driver?
I'm over the moon. Let's make this a fresh start for me
It
and you.
doesn't take a genius to join
And
some
for all the
dots
high
up.
street heroes too.
The majority of taxi drivers in
We're
Oldham are
stronger
from the
together.
Pakistani and Bangladeshi
Better as one.
communities.
Let's make Oldham safe for everyone.
Sorry, when I was trying to turn the sound off on that, I turned the sound down on my mic, I think. These people, what they did with this is no different to what they did with that disgraceful letter that Fielding and Carolyn Wilkins sent out. This is electioneering. The council should not be doing any of this in the lead up to an election. Dr. Carolyn Wilkins should not be signing off on any of it. The reason he's doing this, Paul, the reason he's doing this is because he wants to emulate and follow his mentor. Because that's what we do as young people, isn't it, when we're young? We look up to people and see how they've progressed, and we look to emulate them. So McMahon and Neil Willoughby can buy me coffee all he wants if he exists, it's fine. McMahon used the town as a stepping stone with vanity scheme after vanity scheme, not caring what will happen because he wouldn't be there. He'd have moved on to greater things. And Fielding wants to do the same. My friend Billy from Page UK will happily confirm this. It's an open secret that Sean Fielding is being lined up to take over at Rochdale as the MP. So he's making these grand announcements. And the only difference this time, and I said this with humility, the only difference this time is what we are involved in. We are holding them to account because the opposition political parties have never held them to account. Which is why this space has emerged we're proud of Oldham and Saddleworth and the other independents are emerging into. Because we are fighting for the future of our town. Paul, spot on. Buried in the budget, £37 million a year just in interest. We only raise £100 million from council tax, and that's if everyone paid it. And as we now know, not everyone does pay it. £45 million of council tax has not been paid in the last 8 or 9 years. I believe that we have a right to know in what areas, what postcodes the council tax has not been paid from, and also the demographic information of those who haven't paid. They have that information. They'll have the name and the postcode and the demographic information of those who, of the £45 million of unpaid council tax. Because from where I'm sat, I'm sorry, it looks like another bribe. Here, let's ignore the grooming and gang rape of white working class kids from Pakistani, predominantly Pakistani, occasionally Bangladeshi, very rarely Indian. My Indian friends always get annoyed, and my Sikh friends get very annoyed when they're incorporated into this term Asian. It's predominantly Pakistani. The recipients of the taxi grants are predominantly Pakistani. Discretionary taxi grants, £10,000 just before an election. The people in this town have a right to know who is not paying their way. 45 million. Had a non-payers in Saddleworth. Had in Fitton Hill or Havershaw. Had in Glodick, Coldhurst and Warneth. Copies. Sure. Let's have the information out. What is there to hide? We're meant to have a council that describes itself as open and transparent. And I've not brought it up, but I should have loaded it up. There's a freedom of information request that Paul Errock forced out of him. It took him forever. Open and transparent. What was it, Paul? Was it £50 million in pension payments for the high earners? $50 million? I don't know, Michelle. Michael, Sarah Cooper. I'm nibbling a bit more samosa. Oh, the buy me a coffee thing that they've tried to... Did you guys see that? I forget what came up. Because I actually get to see the name of the person who actually sent it from their email account and the bank account details. Actually, I don't get the bank account details, but I get the name of the person or the email, so I get that. Did you see how he has reported me to PayPal? And this Buy Me a Coffee site because you people support me through PayPal and Buy Me a Coffee. Have you seen that? And this is a man, again a matter of public record, who was name-checked by the leader of the council. Thank you, Paul. £980,000 a year Oldham payout on executive pensions alone. It had to be dragged out of him. £1 million a year on executive pensions. £1 million a year. £1 million a year on executive pensions. Are you ready for this? Do you know how they agree executive pensions? No. They don't sit around with a plate of samosas. Executive pensions, they sit in a circle in a room. And they've got to declare interest, which is their own pension. And they all raise their hands to agree the pension rises for each other. And they just pass each other's pension rises. So imagine 12 of you sat in a room where you're not allowed to vote when it comes to your pension, but if you vote yes for all the other 11, all the 11 vote yes for you. That is how executive pension rises are voted through. I've been told this from a councillor, or from a source from a councillor. And Dr. Carolyn Wilkins, who gets more than her fair share of a pension, who is not been in this town for the best part of a year, left the town in crisis on secondment. £250,000 a year, remember? There you go, Paul. Yeah. See how long you've waited for it, Paul? So £1 million a year in pension rises. And the arrangement, Dr. Carolyn Wilkins. So if we were to be fortunate enough in a couple of years to have a team of councillors who put the town first, who took over the running of the council and marched these imbeciles out. You know the term a golden handshake, where you get rid of people with a golden handshake, yeah, or you introduce people with a golden handshake? There's also something called a golden handcuff arrangement or agreement. And a golden handcuff agreement is essentially written into people's contracts, and it shouldn't be, but it is. And it'll most definitely be, I think. Well, I know it's definitely with one of them. It means it costs you more to sack them. It costs you a lot more to sack them. And I know the council watch me, but this is where this town is going, isn't it? Let's face it. We don't need a communications department on millions of pounds when we've got children hungry in our town and you're increasing the cost of school meals. We don't need the elderly to die lonely whilst you're cutting the funding for small projects that bring them a little bit of joy in the twilight years of their lives. We do not need 3 councillors per ward whilst our children have no parks to go to, no youth clubs to go to, no provision whatsoever. All of the priorities in this town are in the wrong places. Even our bin men, they've been outsourced on 0-hour contracts, whilst the salary of the highly earned goes up and up and up. And the gap between the poorest in the council and the highest paid in the council is widening every year. And from the information we can gather, those who are the higher earners come from elsewhere, and those who are the bottom earners actually are from our town. We've been exploited in every way possible. You don't need PayPal, Susan, whatsoever. I'm grateful with the support people give, and if you can't, or if there's some way it doesn't work, it doesn't matter to me. I'm grateful that you share, you're listening and share. Here's another council. Round the corner, Blackburn and Darwin Council. Fraud and contract mismanagement. Liverpool to one side, Blackburn now to the other. They're claiming they don't know what it's about, but they know full well what it's about. Same as with Liverpool. And you've all seen this scandal to do with that Unite Hotel. Was it 100 million there? It's not the Labour Party I recognise. This isn't anything to do with the working classes or for the working classes. If it's anything to do with the working classes, it's the exploitation of the working classes. I'm sure you've read it. You can see it yourself. I've got some information, important stuff to move on to. And this was important. Of course, it's important. But there's some important stuff to move on to. So just give me a minute. Let me just let me finish my last morsel of samosa and have a drink, and we will carry on. Please, you're watching this on YouTube, click the like button. Click the subscribe button if you're not subscribed. Click the like button. I'm going to keep my YouTube channel going. What I'm going to do with my YouTube channel as we move forward is probably use it for the samosa guides and share the samosa guides to an international audience. I know we've only done one, but there'll be more. There's loads more lined up. There's one on the cartels that I've nearly finished. Because I think this information is of value to more than the people of our town. And the samosa guide on Facebook, last time I looked, had over 5,000 views. And that was on postal vote fraud. The next one will be on the cartels, but I'll put all of that stuff up on YouTube, so I need more of you subscribing. And like the videos, please.
Do not fear them. Do not fear any of them.
Okay. Let's carry on. Barely made the news. Shawman faces 26 sexual offences charges. The headline, Oldham Times again, very misleading. Shawman faces 26 sexual offence charges. They omit from the headline that it's to do with child sex exploitation. I know they pick up on it afterwards, but why is it not in the headline? Child sex exploitation. Ask yourself that first. Imogen, why? Imogen, by the way, she never comes to the town. She's one of those reporters that does something from behind the desk somewhere more affluent, I would imagine. A 74-year-old man, remember his age, please. A 74-year-old man from Oldham has been charged with a string of child sex offences. Christopher Pickup from Underwood Way, Shaw, has been charged with 26 offences of indecent assault on a boy under the age of 14. Here's the small print. In August 2019, police received a report of sexual offences against children at a school in Oldham in the 1970s, and an investigation was launched. So who is Christopher Pickup? Was he a teacher? We've raised this, and we raise this, and I'll keep raising this. And sooner or later, someone will have to listen. There is grooming and gang rape of children from the gates of Counthill School. Where is the police investigation into that? Why is Debbie Abraham silent on it? Why is she standing up and chanting and shouting about the rights of Kashmir and not the rights of children in our own town? And then you have Failsworth School, where I've seen the testimonies myself of children locked in classrooms and sexually assaulted by their teachers. And when the children reported it, they were punished. And the governors of that school included senior Labour Party politicians, including Sean Fielding. You ready? Christopher Pickup, April 1946. List of directors. Excellence in Education Limited, Underwood Way. Was it Underwood Way? In the Underwood Way, DC. Christopher Pickup from Underwood Way, Shaw. Christopher Pickup, Underwood Way. Same guy, we agree. Manchester Diocesan Board of Education. My understanding is he was also involved in the council. Have a look at excellence in education. Yeah. My understanding is Christopher Pickup is currently facing charges of child sex abuse, exploitation, sex abuse in a school in Oldham dating back to the 70s, was also involved in Oldham Council. In addition to his other roles on boards of education authorities and structures such as that. And the headline avoids referencing the child sex exploitation and avoids that he was a teacher. Greater Manchester Police, you watch this all the time. Failsworth School. Children were sexually abused by teachers and those in charge covered it up. Come and arrest me if you think I'm lying. Which brings me on to the last thing I want to talk about today with you. The last sort of issue on this. No, I'm not picking on Imran Khan. But what an abhorrent position to hold. Women are responsible for being sexually assaulted. They were asking for it, is essentially what the Prime Minister of Pakistan is saying. Even his former wife has come out and given him a slap on Twitter, quoting the Quran specifically, to say that's an abhorrent opinion to have. It's not a Muslim opinion to have. A day of reckoning will come, Paul. For Imran Khan to say this, the issue I have is more than with just Imran Khan. I have the luxury of not just an education, but to have spent my life wandering the world and seeing that there's good and bad everywhere, mainly good, and that it's difficult to jump to stereotypical conclusions, because that's the thing with stereotypes. They're usually negative, and then they're usually, more often than not accurate. The Pakistani men I know who I call my friends, whose houses I've eaten in, whose mothers have fed me, and vice versa. They would never agree to this. They would never agree with the view and opinion that somehow the girls are asking for it. But my issue goes further. When your friends say something inappropriate or uneducated or wrong, just plain wrong, it is the responsibility of friends to guide them and support them and demonstrate to them the error of their ways. So was Debbie Abrahams, Imran Khan's mate? Where are you, Debbie Abrahams? Why are you silent on your friend announcing to the world that in Pakistan there's an increase in women getting raped because the women are asking for it? Where's your outrage, Debbie Abrahams? Pakistani women friends of mine in the Labour Party have come out outraged. And as uncomfortable as this comes across to my Asian, to my Pakistani, my Bangladeshi listeners, there is a truth here. And you'll remember I talked about earlier the need to face demons. There is a truth here that we need to face. There is an issue with the way in which women are treated in our communities. There is a power imbalance. There's a clear level of inequality. Reinforced by the likes of Jin McMahon, who attends functions exclusively with men and goes campaigning exclusively with men. We need to face our demons. And the truth of that government report, because I've had time to analyse it properly, that Home Office report that was forced out of them, that all the left-wing newspapers said, oh, it proves it, there's no link. There's no link with Pakistanis and grooming gangs, or with Asians and grooming gangs. The small print from their own statistics prove there is a link. The small print from their own statistics prove that Asian men are 20 times more likely to be members of the grooming gangs. And that's with them excluding convictions. There's 1,000 or so convictions in this country so far. The Home Office report completely ignored the data, the demographic data from the convictions. I've worked in the Home Office. The analysts sound stupid. It's not like missing the small print in the contract of a shopping centre where you don't own the inside but own the bricks and mortar outside and then leave thinking you've got a bargain. The Home Office omitted that data for a reason. And I think we all know what that data shows. Sorry, I have no idea who this is, but no, he's not going to ring me back. He'll have to go running to whoever's in charge of Greater Manchester Police these days. The place that's going to end up. Because I know what it's about. It's not because I am commentating. I'm exercising my democratic right in a Western liberal democracy to share my views and opinions how I see fit, legally. I've been talking for an hour and a half now, nearly 2 hours. I share my opinions every week, and I've been caught talking for 2 hours, more or less. I've never called for violence. I've repeatedly told people to stay within the law. I've objected to those who express violent sentiment. And I've continuously reinforced the need for people to bring about change in the communities where they live through exercising their democratic right to vote. If that makes me a criminal, that the police feel obliged to call me at the weekend twice, thank you, Alison. Sorry, it just says A, so I couldn't work out who you were. No. There is a problem in this country. Forget the demons in our town. There's a problem in this. And if we had to build a country together, if we had to build an inclusive society together, surely we have the confidence to deal with these issues together rather than burying them under the carpet and pretending they don't exist. Surely we have that. And if we haven't got that, what are we doing to get to that? Because in my lifetime, what I have seen is that our failure to address some of these issues has divided our communities more. People like me are being scapegoated for things I find abhorrent. You can stuff your community relations. Every brown person I know wants you to grab hold of those paedophiles, drag them through the courts and put them in prison. And if you promise to deport them, deport them. Don't have them move back in on the same streets of the neighbourhoods where they've raped children. Let's move on. Yes, it was, Paul. It was the Asians who reported it. This man has been writing again. You can see he's claiming Oldham council leader slams dog whistle racists and false accusers. We're not dog whistle racists and we're not false accusers. We know who the barefaced liar is. Or liars. One's a proven liar. Apparently I'm banned on Facebook, and the Buy Me a Coffee scheme is something to circumnavigate the ban. My friends know I've been using Buy Me a Coffee for some time now. Splendour of an upmarket commuter village. I live in a 2-bedroom flat. In fact, when they put that picture of my front door up, or the front up, it was also done in a way where it made it look as though it was my house. There are 12 apartments here. And those who understand Mosley know it's a cheap but nearby to Saddleworth, and I have a daughter there. But can you imagine if my home had been petrol bombed after the front door was put up, with someone thinking he lives in a mansion there? I have elderly neighbours. I have disabled neighbours. There are children living in this apartment block. Can you imagine what would have happened and what the consequences of this man's actions are? I've previously driven Lamborghini and Porsche models. Yeah. Regular shots of his expensive camera and video equipment. Expensive camera and video equipment. The only camera I go outside with is a cheap Sony thing. And my latest podcast had just 222 views over a week after uploading. Would it matter if I had 20 views? And here we go. Persistent, mendacious liar. Rajamir breaches Facebook rules yet again. He's drinking in his last chance saloon. Hasn't mentioned me on his odious Recusant 9 platform since, but I'm still going to restrain him via court proceedings. The term malicious blogger was not a term that I've coined. It's a court that a judge used. That's right, a judge used the term malicious blogger. And a proven liar, well, that's a matter of public record. He had to pay, was it £75,000 for libel after he destroyed a police officer's life who was living with a fire extinguisher and a bucket of water next to his front door after Wilby had accused him of some sort of relationship with Jimmy Savile. He's going to pursue me via court proceedings. Have you all found this really interesting? How this malicious blogger has emerged onto the scene, name-checked by the leader of Oldham Council, Sean Fielding, openly engaged with by multiple Labour Party politicians, including the Shadow Minister for Transport, Jim McMahon. And now he's going to pursue and restrain me via court proceedings. Oh, you should look at this. Let me bring it up. Let me find it. Sorry, you can look at me whilst I go through that. These are the posts that have apparently been took off by Facebook. I think you can just see them. They're on Facebook. Here you go. Look. My Facebook feed. You can see my Facebook feed. There you go. After encouraging the malicious blogger and proven liar Neil Wilby. Blah blah. Stephen Homer. This guy. Did I see you this morning walking along Stockpot Road heading towards Mosley? Stephen Homer is a Labour Party councillor. So maybe he said it in innocence. To Sean Fielding, who was walking to Mosley. There you go. On my Wilby post is still there. The guy's a buffoon. I know many of you phone me or contact me, and I know he's clearly been brought in. I don't think any one of us doubts that, do we? Yeah. I think so. Which then brings me to and I know my posts are regularly taken off and brought back on, or sometimes brought back on or not. It doesn't matter. Because I know what I'm sharing with you is important to the people of my town. And I know how much effort is being put into silence one bloke with a microphone and a camera who spends his weeks collating evidence and information and presenting it to the people of his town. And there you go. So they can keep trying and they can keep trying, and sometimes they'll win, sometimes they won't. But we keep going. So we're on Rumble. Please, if you haven't joined, sign up to Rumble and follow Recusant 9. And I'll be putting all the videos they take down on Rumble. Which brings me to these guys. Because I support the independents. I support people like Mark. And guess who he's out with? Who's openly supporting him? Look who's openly supporting him. It's not just me, a former Labour Party member. There isn't many people here who are former Labour Party members. I think Mark Ince is a former Labour Party member who's the proud of candidate in Shaw. Gary Tarbuck's grandfather was a Labour Party mayor. We're not racist. We're not far right. Look at Mark. Look who he's with. She's the ex-Labour councillor. She now demands more for our community and wants honest people to represent us who live in Failsworth and care deeply for residents here. I want change. This is why I'm wholeheartedly in support of Failsworth Independent. My vote will be for Mark Wilkinson. Join us, cast your vote for change. Cheryl Brooke. Labour Party, former Labour Party councillor. What are you going to do, Sean? Call her a racist as well, or call her far right? Maybe she's got children or grandchildren. You could send a letter to their employers. And the own goal, to finish with, the own goal continues. Sean Fielding joined with the royal family and many others around the world in mourning the loss of the Duke of Edinburgh. Flags on civic buildings will be flown at half-mast, and I will be suspending my local election campaign until further notice as a mark of respect. The next day, Peter Davis was out putting Labour Party signs up for Sean Fielding. And then when Sean got questioned, Sean Fielding removed his post. Which is how this works. They control, the council and the Labour Party control the vast majority of social media pages, Facebook groups in Oldham to do with communities. I think there's a lad called Sharif who's a Conservative candidate. And I'm not a Conservative, but I support all of you who want to bring about change in our town for the better for all of us. He was thrown off a Facebook group in Chadderton because he stood to be a candidate in Chadderton. These are despots. The censorship they want to silence people who care about their town and care about their children and care about their communities. They are despots. They control the majority of social media channels in the town. And if they don't, the Oldham News and Media lot, the cartels run them. No wonder they're reporting us and trying to shut us all down. Oldham Together. What a beautiful name. What a lovely name. 6,000, 7,000 now. And yes, there are people there with racist views and opinions, but that doesn't mean we abandon our people with racist views and opinions. They got to those views and opinions because we failed them. And if we are going to build a better town, we've got to take all of our townsfolk with us, including those whose views and opinions come across as racist. What would we do? What else would we do? These are our people. They did not get to the dark places they are in now because of them. The town failed them. The likes of Fielding, McMahon, abused them, exploited them, and then dismissed them. Because that's what the Labour Party have done across the country to working class folk. Please, if you haven't subscribed, subscribe to the channel. Look out for me. Oh, on Facebook. There's at least 500 of you with invites to like the Facebook Recusant 9 page. Click on that like. There's at least 500 of you with it. You've all commented. You've all engaged in it. That's why I've invited you to like the page. Please like the page. Subscribe to the Facebook. Subscribe to the YouTube. Help me keep going for as long as I can. If you can donate some money, please donate some money. If you can't, it doesn't matter. We'll get to the place we need to together. At what point do we stop fighting? Is it because we've been threatened? Is it because a policeman phones me all weekend? Is it because they put up a picture of my front door? No. The grooming and gang raping of our town's children has to stop. The corruption in the town hall needs to be put to a stop. The corrupt politicians, the corrupt council officers, and sorry, but the corrupt police officers all need to be brought to account. All of you need to vote. And I'll do an episode, I'll do one of these transmissions on the voting and all of the candidates. I don't care who you vote for, but you need to vote. You need to open your eyes and make an informed decision. And we need to take our town back.
Do not fear them. Do not fear any of them.